So no more talking about penises and butts.
No. We weren't
Okay.
talking about penises and butts before.
You're right. We were not. You want to talk about politics now? We can talk about politics. Ooh boy.
Listen, I literally unfriended a bunch of people today. So don't get me started. All right.
Which way did those people lean, Rob?
Not my way. That's
Not your way.
uh yeah. Not to get too deep into it, but they were making fun of the way a 16-year-old girl looks. And I
Ah,
went, "Yeah, that's the line right there. You found it. Congrats. I don't want to associate with you anymore."
was it the 16-year-old girl who was giving an impassioned speech before the fucking United Nations?
Doesn't matter.
You're right. It doesn't matter. It just like the most ridiculous criticism I've heard of that, regardless of your opinion on what she said, was she should be in school. And I'm like, yeah, that fucking high school junior year algebra lesson today, way more important than speaking before the fucking UN, huh?
Or
That thing that almost no one ever gets to do in their life. Like strictly as a life experience thing. Which of these things is more value?
that again, that's irrelevant. She talks about that in her speech. She
Mm-hmm.
specifically says, "I should be in school right now."
Right.
So you're right. She should be in school. What's your
But
fucking
instead,
point?
yeah,
Shit, I said don't get me
I baited you. Gotcha.
It's not cool, bro. I thought Twitch was supposed to like I said that weird.
You did say
I
that pretty
I
fucking
thought it
weird.
was supposed to post out to Twitter. I thought I had it all set up to post to Twitter and Facebook when we go live. But I don't.
I don't know how to do that, so I cannot speak to whether or not that how I can't. I don't know how to do that. So
Yeah, it's I thought I had it all set up, but clearly like I don't see a Facebook post for it, so let me go make one real quick so people know that we're doing this.
okay.
Uh keep the people entertained, Mike.
What people? There's no one here.
You don't know that.
Almost like it didn't. I do. I literally just checked.
All right, there I posted it to Facebook. That's literally all the work I'm going to do about this. Welcome to Bear Swarm. My name is Robert.
I'm Mike.
So
Since you went long,
informal.
I decided to go even short, even shorter than usual.
Don't you always go short? Oh!
Oh, burr, 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 burr.
I need to get a better soundboard.
I was watching. This is completely unrelated to anything else. I will promptly show how out of date my internet viewing is. I was watching a critique of the Game of Thrones finale. This the substance of the video in question doesn't is not in bearing at all. What was funny was that they started it by you know who Lindsay Ellis is? She's a pretty prominent internet critic and commentator kind of on stuff.
No idea.
Okay. Well, regardless, it was her. She was discussing the finale, and the first half of the video was just a recap of what had happened in the series, without like her opinion on it. So it was like this person did this, then this person did this, and this person did this. But that gets boring. So she every time she talked about anything that anytime she mentioned Robert Baratheon, she referred to him as Bobby B, but not Bobby B, Bobby B. And then like the air horns would go off, and like dancing skeletons playing the trumpets would be on the screen. Like it was like a crate, like over the top, like hey, Bobby B. So it's been stuck in my head for the last couple days. So it made me laugh every
That's
time.
that's
I
good.
laughed every single time she did the joke.
It's good sensibilities. All right, at the top of the show, there's a couple things that I want to go over. We launched a new tier on Patreon, so for $5 a month, you get access to the Discord live channel on our Discord server. Which, if you go to Twitch and look at the video that is being rendered currently, you'll notice below me there's a little box that says phone number sign Discord -live.
That's not what we call that symbol.
That's what the Briscoe brothers called it. Phone number sign. And if you're a $5 or more patron, you can say stuff and it will appear there, I am told. You can be on the show live and in text form.
Sounds great.
Yep. So that's the new $5 tier that we launched on Patreon, which we've talked about in the last couple episodes, but we are live streaming these recordings now. So these are visual episodes. You get to see Mike and I. They're
It's
also
an eyeball podcast.
It's a podcast for your eye holes. But also it's completely unedited and raw. There's no production values to it. You get to see Mike's house behind him and a cork board behind me. You can see my blanket that I'm wearing because it's cold in my basement. So think of all these these are treats, visual treats that if you are free on Wednesday nights around 8:30 p.m. Central Time Zone, you could join in the fun. I don't know how to promote.
Is that what this is?
I don't know how to promote Twitch. You're the Twitcher. You promote Twitch.
You want me to promote Twitch?
Yeah.
I mean,
why should people watch this, Mike?
Why should people watch this? So I feel like my viewing habits on Twitch are very different from a lot of people's because I almost never interact in chat. I just enjoy. I watch Twitch for a lot of the same reasons that I think a lot of people watch reality TV, in that they get invested in the personalities of the cast members as opposed to what's going on. So that's why I watch a lot of Twitch, and
Perfect.
I would assume that that's why people listen to a lot of podcasts. But like, I almost never like engage with the chat or anything like that. But hey, I understand people are into that, and we will make a concerted effort to talk to people that do show up.
Yeah, Mike watches the chat.
I do.
I figured out how to get it to show up in my recording studio thing, so I can see it now. I can even look at the camera sometimes.
You look really afraid of the chat.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen over there. Listen, this is
probably not a lot because we're still fresh off the comeback.
This is uncharted territory for me. Yeah, so I found out so I started putting the show out on the same feeds that we used to because I was like, this way people could start picking it up. But friend of the show, James Gabrielson, told me that the platform he uses we're not refreshing on. So I looked into it, and sure enough, they'd archived us and listed us as a dead podcast. So I had to email them separately and be like, hey, refresh our feed, yo. So who knows where else that's happening at. So if you didn't know, we're back, but I don't know how me saying
how would you know
now is going to help you.
Yeah.
So the one thing Bear Swarm has always lacked is a Ross Payton. Somebody to just go out and promote shamelessly what we're doing.
Yeah.
We've never been good at that.
That's true.
Ross was amazing at it. Is amazing at it? I'm sure he's still top notch.
Yeah.
So we have a Patreon. You can give us money every month. We're streaming this to Twitch when we record it. So this is the earliest and freshest way to get the show. And Twitch doesn't cost you a cent. You can just go watch.
That's true.
Patreon, though, the lower tiers, you you get access to a private Discord server, which gives you 24/7 access to Mike and I, or when we log in and look at the server. At the
let's not go so far as to call it 24/7 access, okay?
Hey, it is 24/7.
It is 24/7 access to a chat channel that we sometimes look at.
It goes to my phone, so I see it pretty regularly. But at the $3 level, you get the episode like next day. So right now we're about a week out on releasing the produced episodes to the thebearswarm.com website. So you get the audio of the show mostly unedited. I usually trim out the very end and the very beginning where Mike and I are chit-chatting. But other than that, you get the full thing the day after we record it. So if that is meaningful to you in any way, you can go to Patreon and get those rewards. And if that's not meaningful, please tell us what is meaningful so we can entice you to help make this podcast profitable, because this isn't not work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really work either.
Right.
But so as we've talked about, I've been watching Good Mythical Morning, and on their podcast, Ear Biscuits, they've been talking about how like they're super lucky to have the job that they have, and that they love their job, and the fact that they get to just go make internet videos is like the greatest thing ever. But they're like, it's still work. Like we still have to get up early and we go to bed late, and like, producing a daily show isn't a zero effort thing.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, like that's, just because it's fun, just because this is just me and Mike sitting around chatting for an hour, doesn't mean effort doesn't go into this. And money makes effort feel less painful.
You put that on a t-shirt right there. Money makes effort feel less painful.
Listen, isn't that what capitalism is?
You're right. It's just a funny way of putting it. It just makes me laugh. That's all.
And yeah, so like if we start making enough money, I think I'm going to try to convince Mike to work on a role playing game with me, and we'll publish the first ever Bear Swarm role playing game.
Sure.
If we got the capital to do it, if we have like an art budget, because guess who knows how to lay out a book now, mediocrely? This fella.
We both know how to write a book.
Yeah. Arguably, you know how to write a book more than I do. You've done a lot more of it.
I've done more of them, but I've never self-published one like you have.
Yep.
I think we have different kinds of experience doing that same thing.
Yeah. I think together we could put
I've
out
done
a really...
more volume. You've done more completion, I guess.
Yeah.
Would be the right way to think
about
it.
I've done more of the entirety of the process. You've done more of a specific part of the process.
Yeah.
But that said, I think by our powers combined, we could make a damn fine role-playing game.
Minus art.
Minus
ain't
art.
neither one of us artists.
That's why we need money. Listen.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about my self-published role-playing game. I'm very proud of doing the art direction for that, which involved me going out and finding old pre-17th century paintings. So all of my artwork is like public domain, but it's all like classical art. And it turned out really nice. I'm really happy with it. Like, it was all me finding ways to not spend money, but it turned out to kind of be a fun little thing anyway. But that doesn't work for every genre. It's really hard to get public domain artwork for a sci-fi game. So,
unless you just use NASA pictures, which you did once.
Yeah.
Or you were doing once, I guess.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that game again. I want to do it as a box set, though.
Go down the Jared Sorensen route.
Yeah. Sell 100 copies. It'll be great. The other thing. So I've been thinking about that again, but I've also been working on my Fall of Magic variant game again. My Cyberpunk Fall of Magic, and figuring out how I could produce that through the Game Crafter. If you hear a dog in the background, I apologize. It's our dog being dumb. Anyway, so subscribe to the Bear Swarm. Maybe we'll make the Bear Swarm the role playing game. Not like
We will definitely not make Bear Swarm the role playing game. Bear Swarm will make a role playing game.
Yeah.
Those are not the same thing.
Yeah, I realized as soon as I said it, I said the wrong thing. The Bear Swarm podcast will produce a role playing game that is not about swarming bears, because that's not a good role playing game premise.
The Bear Swarm role playing game sounds awful, and I would not play it. I don't think that there's any way that you could design that game that would make me interested in playing it.
What if the Bear Swarm is a code word for like a secret espionage?
Nope. sounds too corny. And as we've covered, I definitely don't like corny spies.
No, but it's just a code name, right? Like,
yeah, but it sounds corny.
Anyway,
it'd be a pretty extreme uphill battle.
I bet I could figure out a way. I'm good at selling you on things. I could figure out a way to get in.
True.
Just takes a little effort. I don't think I could do it like right on the spot now. I have to put some mind meats into it. Anyway, how have you been, Mike? I almost said the name that I should never be said.
My full name?
I almost did. Not for any reason other than like wanting to be formal.
I appreciate your restraint. I'm doing pretty good. Still recovering really well from surgery. Pretty much zero pain now. Should be all good. Yeah, I have one follow-up appointment in like 3 weeks from now, I think. But when I talked to the surgeon, he seemed pretty confident that everything was a-okay.
Nice. Well,
I think I talked about that briefly last week because that was the day that I went. Last week, like a week ago today.
Yeah, I've been trimming a lot of that out of the produced show.
Gotcha.
But I've been leaving it in for the Patreon audience, Mike's health updates. Mostly because we like the last episode we talked a long time about villains, and I'm like, I'll cut out this like 10-minute chunk where we talk about Mike's health and just try to get it down closer to an hour, because we had like almost 2 hours of recorded stuff.
Yeah, we talked for a real long time last week.
Yeah. So if hey, there's another perk of the Patreon page. You want more content? These episodes tend to be longer via Patreon.
Yeah, you can hear me talk about my penis troubles.
In detail. In glorious, horrifying detail.
Yeah.
So
I'm not gonna go over it. I'm not gonna go over it on the show. But did you see the message that I sent you in regards to my penis troubles?
I did. Did you see me ignore it?
Yeah, I did. I was wondering if you just like were like, I don't know how to respond to that. Mostly that one.
I read it and went, okay.
Remember the days when I was the one that was ignoring your nonsense?
So, have we talked about on the show how mad at you I am?
Yeah, you mentioned it.
Has that come up? You're one of my best friends, but I do fucking hate you. You're such an ass.
Well, tell the people why. Tell the people why you're upset, Rob. Make my changes in my life all about you. Let's do it.
I know we talked about it on the first episode back. I specifically remember talking about it, but the gist of it is Mike and I either lived together or lived in the same apartment complex, and for all intents and purposes lived together for a number of years. And then I moved to Kansas City and meet the love of my life and get married and I'm living the dream. And what does Mike do? Goes and gets on medication and makes himself a better person. And now he's like fun to be around, and he jokes about things. He'll make a pun on occasion.
Let's be clear. They're real rare.
Even
after I do it, I go, ugh. I still
It's-
hate them.
It is an occasion when you do it, but now it happens, and it all makes me hate you for the years of suffering and torment you put me through.
Please. Go fuck yourself. You self-righteous fuck. I put you through torture, please.
3 words. League of Legends.
We already talked about this. It did not happen that often at all. It was like 3 times ever in the 4 years that we lived together.
It was more than that. There was like a month there where it was a pretty consistent thing where you were out of fucking control.
You're right. I was. It turns out that I had unmedicated mental illness issues.
Ugh. And you couldn't fix that when I was still around. No. Had to wait
Nope.
until I don't see you anymore. And now
Yeah.
all the other assholes
And now
in Springfield
and now you're
benefit
here
from
begging
it.
me to move to your city.
Well, yeah,
And being
now
like, you can crash in my basement until you find a place.
you're fun now.
You just begging for me to come back. Come crawling back to me.
Did I tell you
You're
that
begging me to come crawling back to you?
No,
No. You moved out. So it doesn't matter who's moving where. You're coming crawling back.
No, I'm begging you to come boldly walking to where I am at now. You know,
Sure.
the last time I did this with a friend, it worked out great, and I have no regrets.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that, huh?
Getting too close to inside baseball there. Did I tell you that I bought a table?
You bought a no.
Okay.
I need more context to what the fuck you're talking about.
Listen. If I told you about this, you wouldn't need context.
Okay.
So, I have a couple. Like, let's talk about some first world problems. I have a couple TVs I'm not using.
All right.
So I found a good size, like solid, like kitchen table. No like leaflets or anything, just one solid piece of wood. That's big enough to house a television set.
Oh, okay.
So one of my projects is going to be to, like, you know, when I in all my copious free time, I want to cut out the middle of the table and then mount the TV underneath it and layer a piece of plexiglass over it so I can use it for animated battle mats for gaming.
For all those games that you run in your house.
Listen, I feel like I can entice people to coming to my house if I have a kick-ass gaming table. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. Mine's right over there, and it's fucking awesome. And it's the whole reason why I insist that my game groups play at my house.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a table like that.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Like, if I was like, hey,
Although,
guys.
to be fair, I insisted that they game at my place before that, even, because I don't like to go outside. This was icing on the cake for them. It's a requirement that we played at my place anyway.
Well, if they want to play a game with you. If they wanted to somehow
Correct.
self-organize.
Sure, but that's not going to fucking happen.
I know. But anyways, I'm trying to... I have goals to build a sweet-ass digital gaming table.
Are you going to set up like a dedicated... I mean, you probably don't have the room for that with your growing family, but like a dedicated game room? Are you going to like make that part of your office?
It's the plan is to be part of my office. We would move the bed out.
But where am I going to sleep when I come visit then?
In the garage.
That doesn't sound great.
It is insulated and it is climate controlled. No, if we had company,
Still doesn't sound great.
If we had company, we'd move the bed into the office and set up for company. But yeah, that'd be sweet, right? That'd be pretty cool.
What, the game table?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've seen. I wasn't sure if you were talking about forcing me to sleep in your garage. I was like, that doesn't sound very sweet at all. No, the game table, like, I've seen a lot of the DIY videos on like how to make your own gaming table with the inset TV and all that stuff. Various versions, some with the leaflets that where the table like closes over top of it.
Yeah.
Some where the it's like an inset, right? So like the thing sits over top of the TV. And to be perfectly honest, if I didn't have a kick-ass table of my own, I would have done that by now. But I love my table, and the
Yeah.
last thing I'm going to do is fucking take a saw to it.
Yeah, well, your table's also a little small to put a TV in.
I mean, it's the playable surface area in terms of like the grid itself is 36 by 36, so it's like 3 feet by 3 feet. You
Yeah.
get like a medium-sized TV, like not like a giant one,
Yeah,
right?
but
But
I mean, you need a little extra space underneath the table to support the rest of the. So
right,
the table I got, you know what my kitchen table looks like?
yep,
It's exactly like my kitchen table. So like I'm talking about that size table.
that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I didn't have my own table that I really love a lot, I would have made one like that.
And I'll tell you
Probably,
what.
or I would have tried to make one like it by now.
If you move to Kansas City, I'll expedite my process for building this sweet gaming table, and we can keep it at your house.
But I'd already have a gaming table.
But now you could have two sweet.
I definitely do not need 2 gaming tables. That sounds extravagant.
You don't need, but you could have.
Where the okay, so let's pretend for a moment that I move to Kansas City and get an apartment that I can afford in the neighborhoods that I'm interested in living in. It definitely is not going to be big enough to have 2 fucking gaming tables in it, Rob.
Not with that attitude. Gotta dream big, Mike.
I have no response to your refusal to conform to reality, so okay.
All right, do you have anything you want to talk about, or should we answer some of these voicemail questions that we've been ignoring?
No, we can do some fan mail, emails. Not emails, but I was making a Dr. Horrible joke.
I know. You're so a decade ago.
Yeah, it was only like 10 years ago.
We were only making that joke back when we used to do this show.
Right.
All right. I'm just going to go from oldest to newest. We'll see how far Jason Vickery, friend of the podcast, will carry us.
Okay.
You ready to go?
Sure.
Are you ready to do this?
Fucking fire it up. Let's go.
What, Mike? Mike, what are some favorite, favorite, not okay, not so-so.
I'm familiar with what the word favorite means, Rob.
What are some favorite NPCs or non-player characters, NPCs, you have run, and have you ever carried them, the non-player character, the NPCs, over from one game to another? So one more time. What are some of your favorite NPCs you have run, and have you ever carried them over from one game to another?
So in recent memory, I think I talked about this game that I was running on the show before. I was running basically a Shadowrun game using D&D 5e rule set, and I set it in Eberron. Excuse me. And so I was running the same game for 2 different groups, and obviously the story was developing in very different ways, but they kind of they were operating from the same area, so they were interacting with a lot of the same NPC cast list. So that doesn't really count because I basically set up the area and then dropped 2 different player groups in it. But there was one NPC in both of those games that both groups of players really latched onto, and I had a surprising amount of fun role playing as. And this will probably shock Rob. I think it's probably the only NPC that I've ever done an accent for.
Hmm.
He was basically head of the Bratva, the Russian mafia, and so
Was
I did like a Russian-inspired accent.
was he very Russian?
He was very Medusa. So no.
Let's hear your Russian-inspired accent, buddy. Say
It's
hello.
gonna put me on the spot, huh?
Welcome to my lair. Mwahaha. You can improvise a little bit with that.
Let me hang on. I haven't. This was like 4 or 5 months ago. The last time I did this dude. So yeah, the last time I did this dude.
Did you have like a go-to line you would use to get into the voice?
Not really.
I know some like impressionists like they have like a phrase or whatever that they need to use to just I don't know.
Ooh, I don't know if I have any. Like, I'm blanking pretty hard.
Remember when we used to try to get Daryl to sing?
Yeah,
This is essentially
but it's not an embarrassment thing. Like, all right, let me. Okay, I'm channeling a thing that happened in the game and his reaction to it. You have brought this man into my establishment, and he has stolen from me. This is a terrible insult. How will you make this right?
that's not bad.
Coming from a dude that I really hate doing accents, but I felt like for this character, like him feeling like someone who didn't quite belong in the same culture. Like part of his story was that he was almost like an invader.
Yeah.
Like he was coming in and taking over this area. So it was very important that he feel like an outsider. And for that reason, I felt like it was kind of important to make that to reinforce that with how he sounded. So I almost never do accents, but for this guy, I felt like it was pretty appropriate. And both groups responded to him in very different ways, but very powerful ways. Like one group was utterly terrified of him, and the other group really ended up liking him to the point that one of the PCs signed up and became one of his lieutenants and started helping him like take over the city. In return for favors, obviously.
Yeah.
Like they were like, "Hey, I need a thing done," and he was like, "Cool, sure, you work for me now. If you agree, if you want me to do this, you work for me now." And they were like, "Done." Like, okay, you work for him now.
You got
and to be fair, he treated them great.
You got a little praise in the chat room for your performance.
Yeah, you know, Hollywood, here I come with my Bratva lieutenant underboss.
Hey, we're one step closer to being critical hits.
Are we?
No, I don't. Listen,
What was that step that we just took?
I've never watched this show. I don't know. I just know there's like voice actors on it. Yeah. So I don't tend to do like accents or impressions or anything. I'll do inflections, right? Like I'll have characters talk differently than other ones, or like when I was running the Cyberpunk game, like I wanted to get across this I wanted to convey the concept that the person they're dealing with is kind of dumb and ditzy and not all there with it. Despite the fact that she's very well educated and she's pretty smart, but so I did like all the Valley Girl stuff so they wouldn't take her seriously, and then they didn't, and then she was like, "Yeah, but all of your research is bullshit. I went to Cambridge."
Yeah, I do inflections and like voice rhythms a lot, or like I'll try to find a turn of phrase that an NPC uses a lot. And I do that a lot more than accents. Accents always feel like and this isn't it doesn't bother me at all when other people do accents, except for Daryl because his accents are awful. But that's part of the reason why he does them is because they're really bad.
Yeah.
But all the shit that I give Daryl, and like really, we all give Daryl about his accents, his fake accents. Is into them, and that's like the most important thing for playing a character is that you're into it.
Yeah.
And say what you will, when he decides that a character is going to have an accent, he's into it and he commits to it. And that is something that I always feel silly doing, which is why I don't give my characters accents, because I typically it makes me feel a little bit like a clown, which
Yeah.
drags me out of the experience.
Well, and I think there's a lot to be said about just inflection in rhythm and speech patterns. Like, you can accomplish a lot to differentiate characters without like doing wacky accent, not even wacky accents. Like, that's being dismissive. Without doing like different accents or different impersonations or whatever. Like, if you meet somebody and you want them to be like high strung and jittery, like, you have them talk a little faster, like just like you kind of mutter through some words, like, and you can do things like that, and that carries across a different character than like if you walk in and they're like, okay, listen, here's the plan, and you just talk slowly and you enunciate and you make a point of things, and that person comes across as more professional, more serious, so you can do things without like having to do accents. And personally, I'm a lot more comfortable with that, uh,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't really call that like doing like impersonations or accents or
I no,
voices or
I
anything.
agree.
Like, that's not doing
I
voices
think
to
that
me.
that's yeah, I think that that's just role playing, right? Like
Yeah.
that's really just basic getting into your character's head kind of stuff. Even when I play as a PC, like as a player, when I'm playing a character and I describe them as having an accent, I don't do an accent because I don't think that I do them well most of the time, and B, it's mental effort that goes into creating the accent that the character wouldn't have to put in. So I feel like it detracts from my ability to play them in an authentic way.
Do
Like
you?
I played a character in a Star Wars game that was an ex Imperial spy, and I was very specific that he has like an almost exaggerated Imperial accent. He has reasons for why he has an exaggerated Imperial accent, specifically because he was actually a street urchin, but wanted to hide it when he got
Yeah.
into the service. So he put on this like over the top, very posh sounding accent. So whenever because he was a spy, he would swap accents a lot. And then I would say like, okay, like now I talk like a bumbling country bumpkin. And then now I talk like this. And then I would, whenever we switch back, okay, and now I am posh British accent again. But if I were putting the mental effort into that, I would not be able to play that character the way that he should be acting and the things that he should be saying.
Yeah.
So I just make it an aside of like, now he talks like this.
Do you do you ever channel people that you know for certain NPCs? Like, do you ever like think like, oh, okay, like this guy?
Like do a quote unquote impression of a friend.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think so. I don't, and nothing that comes to mind at least. I'm sure I do at least on a subconscious level, but not like never. I don't think I've ever like, and this character's basically Rob, and this character is basically Chris. This character is basically so and so. I don't think so.
Fair enough. I literally did it a couple weeks ago. I introduced a character into the Cyberpunk game, and I channeled um, Mike after people haven't been listening to him for too long.
What do you mean by that?
So the character was like, he's a grizzled edge runner. He was a scout, like a solo scavenger for years. Like, he was doing runs into the corporate hot zone by himself, scavenging whatever he could find and selling it to the highest bidder. Like, he worked alone, uh, and like he was one of the first people to do it, and he like made a big name for himself. And then, like, because he was running around all this nuclear radiation and shit, he got cancer, and in order to get the treatments he needed, he signed on with a corporation to essentially like replace his organs as they started failing on him. So like, he's tired. Like, it's a guy who's been through round after round after round of medical treatments. He's really good at what he does, like, and he knows what he's talking about. But ultimately, he knows he's sold out, and he knows he's in bed with a corporation now. And all the players just broke into the place that he was hired to guard. So he was very much like, listen, I know what, like, I get it. I lived that life. Just fucking tell me why you're here. What is it that you're doing? Like, what's your plan?
Oh, he's like, it is time to cut through the bullshit.
Yeah. So it thought of you like when we've been playing a game for a few hours and nobody's making plans. You're like, all right, god damn it, like you fucking idiots. What what do you think that's gonna like? What do you think is gonna happen here? Like these plans are stupid. Like when you're fed up with the
Gotcha.
indecision and
I do get that way.
yeah. So like he shows up and like he's standing behind bulletproof glass and like all the stuff to kind of protect him from the trigger happy PCs. And he's like, "Listen, this is like out of professional courtesy. What are you doing here? Like, can we just
Just
like?"
cut through the bullshit. What do you want? How do you propose about going to get it?
And they're
How
like,
can I get you out of my hair?
hemming and hawing about giving him details. He's like my boss is listening to all of this. Like, like I'm really just interviewing you for them. They're gonna make the decision about whether you meet with them or not. Like, just shoot straight with me, and this will all go like. But yeah, it was tired Mike, ready to make a decision.
Time to shit or get off the pot, Mike.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Which is a fun Mike because like Mike starts out as, well, here's option A or B or maybe C, and then like after hours of indecision, Mike's like, all right, we're option A is the only really viable option. Why are we even discussing B or C anymore?
Well, yeah, because Mike wants everyone to have their say, but once everyone's had their say, he's like, okay, we're fucking done here. Everyone's had their say, moving the fuck on. There's no reason for everyone to have a second and third and fourth and fifth say. It's fucking pointless. There's no decisions being made. Let's move on.
Yeah. So
But no, I don't think I've ever done something, especially that specific. That seems like something that I would remember doing.
yeah.
I'm sure that I've picked up, little mannerisms and verbal tics and stuff like that I've noticed or incorporated into a character. I think that probably the closest that I would get to something like that is, and I do this a lot, and I think that it has some merits for GMs, is stealing at least the concept of a PC and making them an NPC. And typically, I try to do this with not my PCs. Like I don't want to take a PC that I played and put them as an NPC, because then there's that temptation that they'll be the DM NPC and fuck that shit. Like I try to avoid that as much as possible. But other characters that I see other people play, that I'm like, oh, like that character is really fun to interact with. I'll take them, because PCs by their nature typically have a lot more depth to them in how they act and the ways that they behave and stuff like that to NPCs, because NPCs are by their nature disposable, right? Like you're here to fulfill a purpose, and then once that purpose is done, get the fuck out of here, unless there's some other reason to keep you around. But they're cardboard cutouts unless you invest in them. PCs are the exact opposite of that. PCs are so deep, and because of that depth, especially if you've been playing in a game with someone else long enough to kind of see the different facets of their character, it's very easy to pick them up and plop them into a game that you're running, and then kind of think about how that PC would react, because you have so much more input in terms of like information of how they would react. Whereas like NPCs typically, like I said, they're excuse me.
Whoa.
Got a little something stuck in my throat. 1 second.
It's probably like a kidney stone that just worked its way up to your lungs.
That is not how biology works.
Listen, I'm not a biologist.
Sure. But PCs by their nature are deeper, have more facets.
Yeah.
And NPCs, you created them for a specific purpose. As soon as the players start poking holes in that, or going in a direction that you didn't anticipate, or ask that NPC a question that you didn't think that they might, or latch onto an NPC that you thought that they never fucking would, and then decide to drag that guy through a fucking dungeon with them. Like, it's easier to it makes them feel more real if they're based on something that you've seen react in more ways.
Yeah. I do stuff like that. Like I like introducing old player characters into new games, especially with the players who used to play those characters or played in games with those characters. So like if you know if you're not playing in a game, like introducing your character in a game with other people that remember that character.
Right.
Uh, because like everybody, like at least in my experience, our players tend to go to like the like, oh okay, like I kind of know who this is, let's see how they're different here, and it's you kind of get this instant buy-in. um
Hmm.
and especially if you introduce a character that somebody else's old character, like if I introduced one of your characters into a game that I'm running for you, you're like, oh, what are you going to do with this guy?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. And as a player, I have a lot of fun talking, like interacting with my old PCs on a new character. Like it's really enjoyable.
And I think the thing is, it can be dangerous if you are a player who's too possessive over your old characters.
Yeah,
Where it's like, no, he wouldn't say that. He wouldn't do that. Like that's not what my character would do. Or at like, you have to be able to give up some of that agency and be like, okay, like let's see what Mike's interpretation of my character is, and
yeah,
like that has to be the wavelength you're on. Because it's really easy to be like, that's not my character, because you're personally
right.
invested, right? And honestly, I think I've done that more than I've introduced like the same NPC in multiple games. Because much like you, like I NPCs are kind of disposed. Like I can't, I can't let myself get too attached to an NPC because they're not my main character. They're not the
Right.
most important
And at
aspect
any
of my
point, the
story.
PCs might decide to plug him,
Yeah,
and then all that effort goes out. And it's dangerous to have that level of investment with a villain, but having that level of investment with a neutral or friendly NPC runs you into the danger territory of becoming too invested in them and
yeah,
focusing too much on them and making the story more about them than it is about the players
yeah.
as an accident.
Well, the players are the stars of my show. They're the ones that
Right.
I'm trying to be the most invested in. And oftentimes NPCs are a means to get invested in the player, like in the player's character, more than anything else. So reusing an NPC isn't something that I'm super keen on. I ran a lot of Batman games, so of course, like, I'd introduce the Joker or Mr. Freeze into multiple games. And there was usually like I'd have like my take on the villain that you would see reoccurring. Like the Mr. Freeze I run is pretty much the same in every game that I run him in because it's a version of the character that I made up that I really like. But for some reason, like maybe you have a better insight into this. I don't know. That doesn't count to me though.
Yeah, no, I don't think that counts. You didn't create that character, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, there's going to be an interpretation of Mister Freeze of some sort in a Batman game, or like, I mean, even straight up more. There's an interpretation of Batman
Yeah.
in a Gotham game, right? Like, there is a Batman, and I don't think that if you're running in an established world, like, and taking it away from even comic books, right? Like if you're running a Star Wars game and the characters bump into Luke Skywalker, and then you run a different Star Wars game and those characters also run into Luke Skywalker, that doesn't count,
Yeah.
right? Like he's an established character that you're borrowing because you're playing in the sandbox that he already existed in.
Well, yeah. I think that's especially true, especially if you're playing in the existing sandbox. Um, I think the one thing that makes like Mr. Freeze is the one that comes to mind because I have a non-canonical take on Mr. Freeze that I do over and over again. Whereas you might see a different Ra's al Ghul from game to game. Like I might portray them a little differently or whatever. But like I'm pretty confident that even like you've seen Mr. Freeze in enough of my games that you know what I'm going to
I know what he's
introduce.
about.
Whereas you might not have that same go to if I was like, okay, like I'm going to introduce Killer Croc now.
Yeah.
Because I've done a few different things with Croc, whereas I do the same thing with Mister Freeze over because I like him. He's one of my favorites, and I like the story in my
Right.
head. So
Maybe that counts. Like I think that's a borderline case. I don't know.
yeah, it's hard. Like because I don't consider that like my NPC, but I do consider
Right.
that my take on an NPC, and I do that over and over, but only within the context of a Batman game. Like I would never introduce that character in a sci-fi game I'm running, or you know,
Right.
like that character has no place in my Cyberpunk game that I'm running right now.
Yeah. Even like a reimagined version of him would feel strange.
Yeah. So I tend to not do stuff like that. Like, for the sake of the question, I'm kind of like trying to think and stretch myself. Like, there's a hacker alias that I use a lot of times in my games, but the character tends to be pretty different. But like, if it's if it's a game and they need a computer hacker, like I have a couple go-to names that I'll use. And then at that point they're just like default computer hacker personality.
Right.
So I don't think that really counts. Uh I'm trying to think of like games you've ran and NPCs you've reused, and I can't really think of anything for you. I don't know if you have any thoughts for games that I've
I
ran.
don't. Um.
Again, aside from like
Yeah.
PCs
I don't
reoccurring.
think so. I don't think so. I maybe part of it is the disposable nature that we view NPCs with, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and like an NPC serves the story, and if you're reusing the same NPC, I mean, maybe you're telling a similar story, but that doesn't seem to be a good intent. 9 times out of 10,
yeah,
you know, uh, why use the same old NPC over and over when you can invent a new one that's going to be more germane to what you're doing right now? That's kind of my attitude, I guess. Uh, but I guess there's definitely like similarities. Like there's similar like I like to introduce certain types of NPCs over and over in games. Um, I
like
love
what?
like
What's an example?
so I love to introduce the character that is here to help you. He's your friend, he's your buddy, and then he's going to betray you at some point. Like that's an archetype that I like to use over and over again. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like I really base my NPCs on my PCs though.
I think I certainly do that more, right? Like, I in my head there is like the template of the 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 curse is like a sailor punk rock girl character.
Yeah,
There's like the upstanding, uh, highly professional soldier character who's no nonsense and that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, like I think that I don't think that I attach names and identities to them beyond that archetype.
yeah. Well, I think one of the things like I'm really struggling with is like I run a lot of games in existing canon. So like I play with a lot of characters that aren't mine, um, which I'm a fan of because it's less buy-in. Like not necessarily like even player buy-in, but like I have to come up with less shit if it's a character I'm already familiar with. Like
Yeah,
it's easier for me to go, okay, this is how my version of the Joker will respond to this thing, than it is to go, okay, this is a character that I'm making up on the spot. I'm kind of filling out their background as I go, you know.
yeah.
So even when I do kind of my own characters, I usually like they're like this character and this character mashed together to give myself a little more grounding. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
just not that clever.
I'm with you there. Maybe you're not that clever. I mean, you're not. But
I mean, hey, I based an NPC off of you.
yeah, that pretty much sums up your lack of creativity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna create something new. I'm just gonna pretend you're
Steal.
Mike when he's unmedicated and grumpy. That's a character I know
Listen, that
too
hasn't
well.
changed. That hasn't changed. Mike still gets very annoyed when no progress is getting made after like an hour of discussing the same shit and all the same points just being argued in a circle. Mike still goes, "Fuck this shit. What are we doing?"
So,
And if you don't choose, I will fucking choose.
this I feel like this is kind of a parallel question to what we've been discussing. Do you have any tips or tricks for creating more realistic, more well-visioned, more embodied NPCs. Like,
Probably my biggest one is steal PCs that you've seen played. Like, just straight up be like, oh, it's that I like that PC, so I will take him and I will use him because you've seen him react to a bunch of different shit already. Why put in the mental work of inventing fake scenarios for this character to react to when you have all
Yeah.
the source material that you can already pull from?
it's the same thing about like stealing characters from other like literature or movies or whatever, being like, all
Yeah.
right, this cop is pretty much gonna be my version of Judge Dredd. Let's go.
Yep.
Have you ever stolen one of my characters?
Probably. I do it all the fucking time. I mean, I'm bad at remembering specific examples. Like, I couldn't think of off the top of my head right now a specific PC that I've stolen from anyone, but I know for a fact I do it constantly because it's easier.
All right, fair
And
enough.
ain't nobody got time for writing fucking 10-page backstory to an NPC that might catch a bullet in the head immediately.
I mean, I know I've introduced Stephen Kyle into a bunch of games. Same with Rumi. I've done Rumi a couple times. I can list characters of yours that I've re-embodied. Just saying, I'm a better friend than you.
For most of our time gaming together, you were the DM a lot more than I was.
That's true.
Like, I GM'd sometimes for you, but you GM'd a lot for me.
Yeah.
So there's a much larger pool, and especially a much larger pool of characters that I played for a long time,
Yeah.
rather than vice versa.
Well, and you
So
played some characters that I really liked, like Iblis and Maceo, but I don't know. This is getting very inside. Uh,
I know Iblis has been jacked a bunch of times.
even by you, you've played him a
Yeah,
bunch of times.
I have. He was really fun. He was very different, also.
But yeah, like I mean, a big part of that's because I prefer running a game to playing a game.
Right.
So
I'm most of the I would say like 75% of the time I'm the other way. I would prefer to play rather than run unless I have like a really strong idea of something that I want to do.
yeah. Anyway,
But, unmedicated Mike definitely did not want to run a game for very long.
yeah,
Didn't have the patience. Didn't have the attention span's not quite the right word. I didn't have the patience. I didn't have the ability to put in the work. I didn't have the energy to
yeah,
put in the work on that kind of thing to keep a game together. Unlike now when I have a lot more willingness to invest that kind of energy.
yeah. Well, you're also a lot more of a plotter than I am. Like, I am 90% improv. Like, I
Yeah.
I script out pretty heavily how I get started, and then from there I just make shit up. Whereas I know like you like to kind of have the next few steps kind of figured out at least.
Yeah.
Uh, and if that's how you're comfortable running a game, that does take a little more investment. Uh, but anyway, good talk. This I feel like this was fruitful. Uh, let's do some shout outs, buddy.
Okay. Let me go to the bathroom real quick.
Okay.
I've been dancing. I've been doing the pee dance for a couple minutes.
Have a nice poop. I'll talk to people in the chat room. Hello, people in the chat room. You should say something. And don't type something. That joke is old. Is there still people in the chat room? Hit the little button over here. Yeah, there's a few of you. Oh, my wife left, though. She got bored with us. Oh, shit, I should figure out what my shout-out's gonna be. Otherwise, Mike's gonna be mad at me. Give a shout-out to Breakfast at Scramblers and really tick him off. What have I just thought about lately? Oh, I got one. I got it. I figured it out, chat room. I don't know if any of you are, like, nobody's saying anything, so maybe you're not even there. Nope. Oh, my wife just sent me a picture. She's watching us on the TV in the bedroom.
I'm back.
Hello.
I have a cookie.
Doesn't look like a great cookie.
Well, you would be wrong because it's called a birthday cake cookie. It is, in fact, a tiny little birthday cake.
I'm not a big fan of birthday cake, so I stand by it.
Wow. I don't know what to say in response to that.
I'll let you finish eating your cookie before we give shout outs. Otherwise, people are going to lose their shit that they can hear you chewing. There's one episode that somebody was eating a burrito during.
That sounds like something I would do.
It was probably you. It's probably
Probably was.
like a big ass Qdoba burrito too.
Probably.
It took you an hour to eat.
It was probably good as fuck.
Do you have something to shout out to? Have you thought about it? I have
did before I went to pee.
I have something. I've had it this whole time. I didn't think about it while you were peeing or anything.
Yeah. I had something before I went to pee. Let me see if I can remember it.
Multitasking murder Hobot mode?
I think it means robot.
What's a Hobot?
Hobot hangs out with Hedonism Bot.
I play that game.
What? Hobot?
Yeah.
Basically a robot porno game?
Well, it's a murdering Hobot.
Okay, so robot horror porn game?
I mean, aren't all robots murderers? I mean, inevitably. Name one robot story in which a robot didn't murder somebody.
One robot story?
Yeah.
Wally.
I'm pretty sure he murdered some people. I haven't seen Wall-E, but I'm confident that he murdered some people.
Are you just concerned with how quickly I came up with that answer?
No, I figured you'd come up with something. But I was like, no matter what he says, I'm just gonna you can't
deny it.
You can't argue with somebody who won't listen to logic.
It's correct.
See me unfriending people earlier today. All right, bring us in whenever you're ready. Good friendo.
Going to shout out.
We're gonna shout out to your urologist.
No.
You're gonna shout out to Breakfast at Scramblers.
Nope. That is the thing that I was talking about last week that annoyed me when he shouted out to breakfast. Yeah, I was like, that's fucking stupid.
It wasn't just breakfast. It was the breakfast he had at a specific place this morning.
Right.
Like, I'm shouting out to a very specific and personal point in time. At first, I was like, are you calling me out? Because, like, on the first episode, I shouted out to a concert that I'm going to go to. It's like a local thing.
That's an event, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's fine with me. What should I shout out to?
Probably some shitty anime.
Nah, I got something. I'm ready. Shout outs!
God damn, that was loud.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You have to tune that one down, huh?
Yeah, it does it for me. I just auto-tune this shit.
Do you want to go first?
I can go first.
Go ahead, then.
I'm going to give it a shout out to a board game I played a few weeks ago that was surprisingly fun, despite the fact we later learned we played it wrong. So a game that can hold up even when you miss, like, one of the rules. Usually a good sign. The Fallout board game. So there's a couple different Fallout games out right now. One's like a miniatures skirmish game, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like literally, it's Fallout the board game, uh, and it's surprisingly fun. Like it captures a lot of the feel of Fallout really well. Um, you it's a victory point system, so you're trying to get the most victory points or whatever. And the main way to do that is through quests, which is the rules that we screwed up. So we didn't do any quests, which made the game take friggin' forever. But like, it's a you start with like a hex map, and then as you explore, like every turn you get two actions, and you can like move, explore, fight, do a couple other things. Uh, so you kind of explore out this hex map, and you go to like explore ruins and settlements, and try to find gear, and go fight bad guys to get experience to level up your character. You know, I don't know. It was super fun. Like it's kind of crunchy. It's definitely not like a lightweight board game. But man, it really captures the Fallout, especially like the Fallout 3, Fallout 4 kind of experience, really really well for a board game. I was really kind of surprised. Um, I was at Pound and Pint and I was waiting for people to show up, and I just grabbed it because you can solo play. And I was like, okay, like if nobody shows up tonight, I can just play this. I can just play with myself. Uh, but I didn't need to.
Just like usual when no one shows up.
Yeah, usually if you're alone and you're not playing with yourself, you're doing it wrong. Uh, but luckily, people showed up and we played wrong, and it was still fun. And we went, holy shit, this game would be a billion times better if we didn't fuck it up.
Played it correctly.
Yeah. But like, right, like, imagine playing a game wrong and being like, this was still a lot of fun. Oh man, that one thing we missed. That's the key to really making this game sing.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it, and if you like kind of strategy tactic board games, uh, I would recommend it. Uh, which is why it's my shout out, I suppose. Wouldn't
That is
be
what you're doing.
my shout out if I didn't recommend it. So that's kind of a. Uh,
Is it a
yeah.
is it a newer game?
I feel like it came out like a year or two ago, so it's newish.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's already an expansion pack out for it, so it can't be that new.
Mm.
But it's good. It's high
No,
quality
with,
too.
with board game Kickstarters these days, they ship an expansion out of the box.
I don't think it was a Kickstarter though.
Gotcha.
But it's high quality too. Like your characters are like decent sized little plastic figures, and I don't know. It was fun. I would definitely recommend checking it out. Um, next time you're in town, we should go up to Pun and Pint and play the Fallout board game.
Okay.
I'm making all these plans for next time you're in town. It'll be great.
If I can ever not have to pee long enough to make the trip.
I mean that's why we stopped going down to Springfield. We had a baby, and man,
They gotta pee a lot.
3 hours in a car with a baby means you're in a car for like 6 hours with a baby. It's terrible.
Yeah.
All right, your turn. Go, Mike.
Sure. So I'm going to give a shout out to something that I think everyone listening probably already knows about, but probably hasn't actually dabbled with or gone through with purchase from. It's a little website called Hero Forge.
Oh,
I actually recently purchased my first Hero Forge, and it's very fun to make your character on it. I would definitely advise, like, if you're going to you shouldn't go in there just browsing. Like, you should be like, I'm going to make this person, this character of mine, and then kind of conform the Hero Forge thing rather than just being like, I want to see their necromancer and clicking on their necromancer button that puts your guy in that. That's boring. But what's fun is like trying to make your character in Hero Forge. I've messed with it before, like way back when it first came out, and just recently started what I'm pretty sure is going to be a long-standing campaign in D&D. We just played our second game last night where we almost all died, which would have been real awkward since literally all the players have ordered Hero Forges for their characters. Um, would have been real awkward to die at session 2. But the the everyone chose kind of different quality tiers. So like one guy got the regular plastic, one guy got the high grade plastic, and I got the steel because it's only like, and this is gonna be a fucking privilege moment right here. It's only $30 for a steel mini. Um, but what really intrigued me, so one of the things I really dislike about plastic minis is how lightweight they are. Like anything bumps into them and they go fucking flying all over the place or they fall over. They don't stand up really well just because the plastic like bends, or if it sits in a bag the wrong way or whatever. So if I was going to spend, $10 or $15 on a custom made mini, I I was far more comfortable spending $30 to like have it be fucking made of metal and not give a shit
Yeah.
if like it's not going to break, right? Like at all. And I'm really, really satisfied with it. It has a really satisfying weight to it. It's super stable. Like it sits and it's fucking is not going to fall over. The detail on it is still really nice, despite it has kind of this strange. It feels almost like cast iron when you like pick it up and kind of fuck with it. So it feels rough, but it still has a lot of detail on it. And the game that we're playing is kind of like ancient Greek heroes inspired, so kind of like Hercules and stuff. And the steel is like kind of this, like it's not bronze, but it kind of has like that like rust color to it. So when I plop my dude down, he looks like the fucking Colossus of Rhodes. Like he's not fucking, he doesn't tip over. He has this like dark red tinge to him. He looks really cool. He's really highly detailed. He's really durable. Uh, and it recently came to my attention because again, because I for the past like 6-8 months or so, I've been, maybe even like longer than that now, I've been running online and kind of got thrown off kilter with my surgeries and stuff. I've been running D&D online for a group of much newer players, have a lot less experience with D&D, and it was very adorable because I had that little newbie gamer moment where one of them's like, "Oh my god!" and then linked me Hero Forge and was like, "This site is so cool. Have you seen it before?" And I was like, "Ah, little baby gamer. Yes, I have seen Hero Forge. I saw Hero Forge long, long ago. It is indeed very cool." But that kind of reminded me, like, I mean, it worked, right? Like I was like, "Oh yeah, this is fun." But
Yeah.
yes, I've heard of it, and then ended up going in and buying a mini, so it worked. But it was really high quality, and my recommendation is if you're gonna invest in one, like I would go for the metal.
Okay.
The metal's super sturdy, really cool looking, still has really high detail, nice, satisfying heft to it. As Boris, the bullet dodger, said, if it doesn't work, you can always hit him with it. Heavy is good, heavy is reliable.
It's funny you bring it up because I was actually just talking to a coworker today about Hero Forge because she has a 3D printer and she's like, I'm not going to pay $5 for the model from Hero Forge. So she uses a very similar site called Desktop Hero 3D. Uh, but all you can do is download the asset and print it at home.
Yeah,
It's a different system, but it's the same premise. So uh, whereas like Hero Forge is a lot more like kind of snap together, right? Like everything kind of clicks together pretty nicely. It's very kind of Lego-y almost. Desktop Hero 3D is a lot more like 3D modeling. So there's a lot of stuff that overclips unless you can like kind of move it into the right position or whatever. But like as a quote unquote free alternative, I've been pretty impressed with it. I want to make some minis for some games that I'm like playtesting, but I don't want to invest like the $20 to get a
yeah.
figure from Hero Forge. Whereas I can like design the model and like I have a few friends with 3D printers and get it printed, for
Mm.
considerably cheaper.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm gonna just tag that onto the end of your shout out.
Sure.
Desktop Hero 3D, very similar to Hero Forge. Also, very just fun to go play with.
Yeah. It's really, like I said, I'm sure that everyone listening has at least gone to Hero Forge and kind of fucked with it. And up until recently, that's what I was in. But I finally actually ordered one and got it, and like really happy with it.
Cool.
Hero Forge. It's pretty dope.
We have a shout out from the chat room as well. I can't speak much about it, but it is Tingleverse, the official Chuck Tingle role playing game. And if you're not familiar with Chuck Tingle, just Google it.
Well, I don't know what Chuck Tingle is, and I don't think I want to Google it.
Just
It sounds like a dangerous Google.
It's not that dangerous. You'll know it once. Like if you Google it, you've heard of Chuck Tingle. You just don't realize it.
Okay.
But yeah, the official Chuck Tingle role playing game. This is a shout out from the chat room.
Okay.
It's from a very specific person, but I don't want to name who it is because I don't want people to think like there's chat room favoritism. It's from my wife. My wife is shouting out to something.
It is indeed from your wife.
But all right, Mike, end the show.
Are we done with this? Are we done with this broadcast?
Are we?
Broadcast hour and 15-ish minutes.
It's up to you, buddy. You end the. You tell.
What's our runtime at?
We have about an hour and a half recorded, so I mean, we cut it down. We'll have a good hour-long show.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Hit us up on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Gram, TikTok, Snapchat. We don't have most of those.
Listen.
But like and subscribe.
Hit us up on the Patreon with some money.
Do we have a YouTube yet?
We do.
We do?
Yep.
Is there anything on it?
Nothing public.
Okay.
But YouTube is the way that, or one of the two ways that you can do Patreon live streams exclusive for your Patreon viewers.
Gotcha.
Which, if we had enough patrons, we just do it that way. But as Mike pointed out, we're kind of using Twitch to drum up more interest, which is, it's fine. It is what it is. Listen, we did the show for years for free. I don't know why. Yeah. But man, like if we could make more money off of it, we'll put more effort into it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Money makes effort less painful.
It's going to be the first new Bear Swarm shirt. Mark my words.
Nobody's asked for a Bear Swarm store, so not happening.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll probably, more than likely, I would say at least like 65% chance, see you again in a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, maybe a year, but probably a week.
Probably not 4 weeks or a year.
No?
Maybe 2
You
or 3
don't think we have
weeks.
that much staying power?
No, I think we're about at the end of the tank.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week. Bye.
I love you all. Some of you more than others.